The grand halls of the Xilari Palace shimmered with an eerie blue glow. Captain Daniel Hayes adjusted the collar of his ceremonial uniform, feeling the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders. A human marrying an alien princess. It sounded like something out of an old sci-fi movie. But here he was, standing in the center of it all. The Xilari were unlike any species humans had encountered before. Their translucent skin pulsed softly with bioluminescent patterns, shifting like ocean waves. Their eyes were large and deep, reflecting more emotions than their mouths ever expressed. They communicated in whispers, soft, layered voices that carried both words and meaning beneath the surface. Daniel had met Princess Xyra only once before. She was beautiful in a strange, otherworldly way, with glowing silver patterns running across her arms like living tattoos. She had spoken little but had watched him with an intensity that made him feel exposed, as if she could see straight into his thoughts. This marriage was not about love. It was an alliance, one meant to prevent war. Humanity had struggled for decades to establish a diplomatic bond with the Xilari, a race known for their secrecy and isolation. For reasons still unclear, they had finally agreed, on one condition: the marriage of their princess to a human representative. Daniel had been chosen. As he stood at the altar, waiting for Xyra to arrive, he thought about everything that had led him here. The political meetings, the endless negotiations, the whispered warnings from his superiors. The Xilari were allies now, but that hadn't always been the case. There were stories of battles long forgotten, of conflicts erased from history. But the official records told a different tale. A low hum filled the air as Tyra entered the chamber. The crowd of Xilari bowed their heads in unison, their glowing bodies dimming for a brief moment as a sign of respect. Daniel turned to see his bride. Xyra moved with an almost liquid grace, her flowing gown shimmering like a river of starlight. Her gaze met his, and for the first time, Daniel saw something in her expression that was neither cold nor distant: curiosity. She approached and stopped just inches from him. A Xilari elder stepped forward and raised a thin metallic staff. He spoke in the strange, whispering tones of his people, but a small translator pinned to Daniel's ear converted the words in real time. "You may be bound in words and promise, but remember the most sacred law of our kind. You must never touch her bare skin." The warning sent a ripple through the crowd. Even the air seemed to grow heavier. Daniel hesitated. He had expected cultural differences, but this was unusual. Why such a rule? He wanted to ask, but the ceremony continued. As the vows were exchanged, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into something far bigger than himself, and he had no idea what awaited him on their wedding night. The ceremony was unlike anything Daniel had ever witnessed. The Xilari did not use rings or written vows. Instead, they performed a ritual of light. Xyra raised her hands, and the glowing patterns on her skin pulsed in a synchronized rhythm. The energy in the room shifted, and Daniel felt a strange warmth settle over him. A Xilari elder stepped forward, holding a thin, crystal-like device. He whispered something in his native tongue, and the device lit up, releasing a soft hum that filled the chamber. The translator in Daniel's ear activated. "This bond is sealed. Let the two walk forward as one, their paths forever intertwined." The Xilari in the audience let out a low, humming sound, something between a song and a chant. Daniel wasn't sure if it was approval or something else entirely. He glanced at Tyra, but her expression remained unreadable. Then came the final part of the ceremony. The elder lifted a metallic staff and pointed it toward Xyra and Daniel. A soft pulse of blue light spread from the staff, washing over them both. Daniel felt an odd tingling sensation in his chest, almost like static electricity. "This light binds your essence. From this moment, you are one in fate and duty." Daniel nodded. He had sworn to follow Xilari customs, even if he didn't fully understand them. But that one rule still echoed in his mind: never touch her bare skin. Why? As the ceremony ended, Tyra turned to face him. For the first time, she spoke directly to him, her voice soft yet layered with strange undertones. "You do not know what this truly means, do you?" Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I know it means peace between our people." Tyra tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. Perhaps, or perhaps it means something far more dangerous. Before Daniel could ask what she meant, the doors to the chamber opened, and the auxiliary attendees began to leave. The ceremony was over. A procession awaited them outside, ready to escort them to their shared quarters. The realization hit him then. This wasn't just a political act anymore. He was now bound to a woman he barely knew, from a species he barely understood. And tonight, they would be alone together for the first time. As they walked through the palace halls, he noticed the way the auxiliary around them reacted. Some looked at them with curiosity, others with deep concern. Whispers filled the air, and though he couldn't understand them all, he caught fragments through his translator. The human does not know. He will learn soon enough. Daniel's instincts screamed at him. Something was wrong. Zyra walked beside him in silence, her glowing patterns shifting ever so slightly. It felt almost nervous. He clenched his fists. Whatever mystery surrounded this union, he was about to uncover it, and he had a feeling it would change everything. The doors to their chamber slid open with a soft hum. Daniel stepped inside first, scanning the dimly lit room. The walls shimmered with a soft, bluish glow, as if alive. Strange floating orbs hovered in the corners, pulsing gently like slow-moving fireflies. The air carried a faint floral scent, sweet but unfamiliar. Zyra entered behind him, moving with her usual grace. As the doors sealed shut, Daniel felt the weight of silence settle between them. This was the moment he had been dreading, not because he feared her, but because he didn't understand what was expected of him. He turned to face her. "So, this is it." Zyra's glowing patterns shifted slightly, as if reacting to her emotions. "Yes." She walked to the center of the room and placed her hand against the wall. The glowing patterns on her palm flickered, and instantly, part of the wall transformed into a transparent screen. Strange symbols and flowing text appeared, shifting in real time. Daniel watched, fascinated. "What are you doing?" "Activating the room's protective field," she replied. "No one can listen. No one can see." That statement only made his unease grow. Why would someone be watching us? Zyra turned to him, her silver blue eyes unreadable. "Because they do not trust you." Daniel let out a dry chuckle. "Well, that makes two of us." For the first time, a small, fleeting smile appeared on her lips, but it vanished just as quickly. She took a slow step toward him. The soft light of the room reflected off her skin, making her seem almost unreal. "You have questions," she said. "Too many," Daniel admitted. "But let's start with the biggest one. Why is it so important that I never touch your bare skin?" Zyra's gaze held his for a long moment. Then, instead of answering, she lifted her hand and slowly removed one of the thin silver bands wrapped around her wrist. It was the first time he had seen even a small part of her skin exposed. Daniel held his breath as she reached out, her fingers hovering just an inch from his own. "Do you want to know the truth, Daniel Hayes?" Something inside him hesitated. A deep primal instinct warned him that whatever happened next would change everything. But Daniel had never been the type to back down from the unknown. "Yes," he said firmly. Zyra pressed her fingertips against his. The moment their skin touched, a shockwave of energy surged through Daniel's body. It wasn't pain, but it was overwhelming. His mind exploded with visions, memories that were not his own. He saw battles, fires raging across alien landscapes, human soldiers screaming as Silari warriors struck them down. He saw ships burning, cities collapsing, images so vivid they felt real. His knees buckled, and the world around him blurred. The last thing he heard was Kyra's voice, whispering softly, "Now you understand." And then everything went dark. Darkness swallowed Daniel. His mind spun as if he were falling through endless space, trapped in a storm of memories that were not his own. Flames roared. Battles raged. He saw human soldiers fighting and dying against the Xilari, their bodies burned by weapons unlike anything in human history. These were not just visions. They were real. Daniel gasped as he snapped back into reality. His body felt heavy, as if he had been drained of energy. He was lying on the smooth floor of the chamber, his head pounding. His breathing was ragged, and sweat dripped down his forehead. Above him, Syra stood silently, her glowing patterns shifting in slow waves. "What was that?" Daniel managed to say. She knelt beside him, but did not touch him again. Memories. He struggled to sit up. Whose memories? She hesitated. Mine. My ancestors. My people's. Daniel shook his head, still dizzy. The images had felt too real. He had lived them. "The war," he muttered. "I saw humans and Xilari fighting. But that doesn't make sense. There was no war. The records say." "The records are lies." Kavzaira interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. Daniel stared at her. "What do you mean?" Zaira took a slow breath. "Centuries ago, humans and Xilari met for the first time. It was not peaceful. Your people saw us as a threat. We saw you as invaders. There was war, destruction. And then, when it was over, we erased it." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Erased it. Our kind has a unique ability," Zaira explained. "When we touch another being, we can connect to their mind, their thoughts, their memories, their very essence, and we can alter them." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "You're saying the Xilari erased an entire war from human history?" Zaira lowered her gaze. "We believed it was the only way to stop the bloodshed. The elders decided that if humans forgot, they would not seek revenge. So we reached into your minds, into your leaders, your historians, your soldiers, and took the war away." Daniel felt his stomach twist. How much of human history had been rewritten? His mind raced. Had humanity lost battles they never knew existed? Had entire generations fought and died, only to be erased like they never lived? He looked at Syra, his heart pounding. "Why show me this now? Why reveal the truth?" Her glowing eyes met his. "Because you are my husband now, and I will not build this bond on lies." Daniel took a shaky breath. He had come here to forge an alliance, but now he felt like a man standing on the edge of an abyss. The truth was terrifying, but one thing was clear. Everything he knew about history was a lie. And the worst part, he didn't know if humanity would ever forgive the Xilari for what they had done. Daniel sat in silence, his mind a storm of emotions. His pulse thundered in his ears. The room felt smaller now, the walls pressing in. He had expected politics, cultural differences, maybe even a little danger in this marriage. But not this. Zaira, his alien wife, had just told him that her people had rewritten human history. He forced himself to breathe. How many people know about this? Zaira hesitated. Only the Xilari elders. And now, you. Daniel clenched his fists. His entire species had been robbed of their past. Humanity had lost wars, had suffered, had died, and they had been made to forget. The thought made his skin crawl. He looked at Tyra. She sat gracefully, her glowing skin dimmer than before, as if she were ashamed. "Why now?" he asked. His voice was hoarse. "Why tell me the truth when your people kept it hidden for centuries?" Zaira's silver blue eyes met his. "Because I have seen what happens when truth is buried." She let out a slow breath. "And because I did not choose this marriage just for diplomacy. I chose you." Daniel frowned. "Chose me? I studied you before this union was arranged. You are not like the others. You question, you push back, you fight for what is right, even when it is dangerous." She lowered her gaze. "I did not want to be bound to a man who would accept lies." Daniel exhaled sharply. So you tested me. Zyra gave a small nod. I needed to see if you could handle the truth. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. It was too much. He wanted to storm out, demand answers from the Xeluri elders, shout at the universe for allowing something like this to happen. But the truth was already inside him. Those memories weren't just images. They felt real. The screams, the fire, the hopelessness of the human soldiers as they were cut down. He had experienced their deaths as if they were his own. And the worst part, it wasn't just the war that had been erased. It was the lessons, the failures, the struggles. Everything humanity could have learned from that conflict had been stolen from them. How many mistakes had they repeated because of it? He looked at Zyra again. Her glowing patterns were flickering, unsteady. She was afraid of what he would do now. What happens next? Daniel asked. His voice was quiet but firm. Zyra's expression was unreadable. That depends on you. The weight of her words settled over him. He had a choice to make. He could expose the truth, risk tearing apart the fragile peace between humans and Xeluri. Or he could keep this secret buried, just as the elders had done for generations. But before he could decide, a sudden alarm blared through the chamber. Zyra's eyes widened. They know. Daniel's heart pounded. Who? She stood up, her glowing skin brightening in urgency. The ones who do not want you to remember. And before he could react, the doors to their chamber exploded. The explosion sent a shockwave through the chamber, throwing Daniel backward. He hit the floor hard, his ears ringing. Smoke and debris filled the air, and through the chaos, he saw shadowy figures moving fast. Zyra was already on her feet, her glowing patterns flickering wildly. She moved with unnatural speed, reaching out toward Daniel, but before she could, they entered. Tall, armored figures stormed the room, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Their bodies were wrapped in dark metallic suits, but their eyes, glowing with the same eerie light as Kyra's, betrayed their identity. Xeluri. But these were not diplomats or elders. Their movements were sharp, aggressive, military. Assassins. Daniel's instincts kicked in. He rolled to the side just as a pulse blast struck the ground where he had been lying. Heat burned against his skin, but he didn't stop. He had been trained for combat, but he was unarmed. And against enemies like this, unarmed meant dead. Zyra raised her hand, and the glowing patterns on her arms flared. A shockwave of energy erupted from her palm, sending two attackers crashing into the walls. The impact cracked the surface, but more of them rushed in. Daniel grabbed a broken piece of metal from the wreckage. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. He dodged another blast and lunged forward, slamming the metal against the nearest attacker's helmet. The force barely staggered them, but it was enough for Zyra to grab his arm and pull him back. "We can't fight them all," she said, her voice sharp with urgency. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Then what do we do?" She glanced toward the far side of the room. One of the walls had been partially destroyed in the explosion, revealing a dark corridor beyond. "This way," she ordered. They sprinted toward the opening as another blast narrowly missed them. Daniel felt the heat against his back, but he didn't stop. Survive now, ask questions later. As they ran down the corridor, the sound of pursuit echoed behind them. Daniel turned to Zyra. "Who are they? Why are your own people trying to kill us?" Zyra didn't look at him. Her expression was grim. "They are the keepers, the ones who ensure the truth remains buried." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "So you knew this would happen?" "No," she said, "but I knew it was possible." Anger flared inside him. He had walked into this marriage thinking it was a political alliance. Now he was running for his life, hunted by the very people he had come to make peace with. A new thought struck him. If the keepers were willing to kill him to keep the truth hidden, how many others had they erased before him? Zyra suddenly stopped in front of a sealed doorway. She pressed her glowing hand against it, and the door slid open. "This leads outside," she said. "We need to go. Now." Daniel hesitated for only a second. Then he ran through the door, stepping into the unknown. Daniel sprinted through the doorway, his heart pounding. The moment he stepped outside, a rush of cold air hit his face. He stumbled onto a wide metallic platform that stretched into the vast night. Above him, twin moons cast a ghostly glow over the alien city. Towering spires of glass and metal reached toward the sky, their surfaces shimmering with energy. Zyra followed close behind, her glowing patterns pulsing with urgency. She turned and slammed her hand against the control panel. The door behind them sealed shut just as another explosion rocked the building. "They won't stop," she said, her voice tense. "We need to keep moving." Daniel scanned their surroundings. They were standing on the edge of a massive structure, high above the city streets. A network of floating transport pods zipped through the air, moving between buildings like fireflies in the night. Below, the city pulsed with life, but up here, they were exposed. "Where do we go?" Daniel asked, still catching his breath. Zyra pointed to a narrow bridge connecting their platform to another building. "That way. If we can reach the lower levels, we can disappear into the crowds." Daniel frowned. "And if we don't?" Zyra met his gaze. "Then we die." Not much of a choice. They ran across the bridge, their footsteps echoing against the metal surface. Daniel could feel the heat of energy blasts behind them. The keepers were still coming. As they reached the other side, Zyra suddenly stopped and grabbed Daniel's arm. "Wait." Daniel turned, confused. "What?" Before he could finish, she pushed him flat against the wall, just as his sleek black drone swooped past where they had been standing. The drone paused in midair, scanning the area with a glowing red sensor. Daniel held his breath. The drone lingered for a moment, then shot forward, disappearing into the night. Zyra exhaled. "They're using seekers. We have to be careful." Daniel pushed himself off the wall. "Great. Assassins, explosions, drones. Anything else?" Zyra didn't answer. She just started moving again. They descended a series of winding staircases, heading deeper into the city. The further they went, the louder the sounds of alien life became. Soon, they emerged onto a wide street, filled with towering neon signs and massive holograms displaying auxiliary symbols. Crowds of different species moved through the marketplace, their voices blending into an endless hum. Daniel adjusted his posture, trying to look natural. "Think they'll find us here?" Zyra pulled up the hood of her ceremonial robe, covering her glowing skin. "Not if we keep moving." They blended into the crowd, walking quickly but not running. The scent of strange spices and alien food filled the air. Vendors shouted in unknown languages, and the streets pulsed with life. For now, they were safe. But Daniel knew the keepers wouldn't give up that easily. They were just getting started. Daniel and Sarah moved through the crowded streets, their eyes constantly scanning for danger. The marketplace was alive with activity. Strange alien creatures haggled over glowing artifacts. Vendors shouted in unfamiliar languages, and mechanical drones hovered above, monitoring the flow of people. But Daniel knew the keepers were still hunting them. He leaned closer to Zyra. "We need a plan. We can't keep running forever." Zyra nodded, her hood casting a shadow over her glowing eyes. "I know someone who can help, but we have to find him first." Daniel frowned. "Who?" "A defector," she whispered. "A former keeper." Daniel's eyes widened. A keeper who turned against their own. That was rare. From what little he had learned, the keepers were fanatically loyal. If one had betrayed them, there had to be a good reason. Zyra led him through a narrow alley between two towering buildings. The walls were covered in glowing blue vines that pulsed softly like breathing organisms. The further they went, the quieter the city noise became. Finally, they reached a small door at the end of the alley. Zyra knocked twice in a strange rhythm. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, The door slid open with a hiss. Inside stood a tall, armored Xilari with deep scars running across his face. His glowing patterns were dim, almost faded, and his piercing silver eyes studied Daniel with suspicion. "You shouldn't have come here, Xira," the Xilari said in a low, gravelly voice. "We had no choice, Darvik," she replied. "The keepers know he has the memories now." Darvik's gaze shifted to Daniel. "So, you are the human they fear." Daniel crossed his arms. "Guess so." Darvik let out a dry chuckle. "Then you are either very important or very doomed." "Probably both," Daniel muttered. Darvik stepped aside. "Come in. But if they track you here, we're all dead." Xira and Daniel entered, and the door sealed behind them. The room was dimly lit, filled with stacks of old data tablets and strange devices. It looked like a hiding place, not a home. Daniel turned to Darvik. "Xira says you were a keeper. That means you knew the truth too." Darvik's expression hardened. "I did more than know it. I enforced it." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "You erased people's memories." Darvik nodded slowly. "I did, until I saw what it truly cost." He looked at Xira. "Why did you bring him here?" "Because he's not like the others," Xira said firmly. "He won't let this secret stay buried." Darvik studied Daniel for a moment, then sighed. "If that's true, then there's only one way forward." Daniel tensed. "Which is?" Darvik's silver eyes darkened. "We expose the keepers, and we burn their lies to the ground." Daniel felt a surge of adrenaline. Darvik's words carried weight. Exposing the keepers meant war. But after everything he had seen, everything he had learned, he knew there was no turning back. "How?" Daniel asked. "How do we expose them?" Darvik stepped forward, picking up a small device from a table. It was round, metallic, and pulsed with faint blue light. "The keepers store every erased memory in a hidden archive," Darvik explained. "They don't destroy history, they lock it away." Daniel's eyes widened. "So there's proof, a record of everything they erased." Darvik nodded. "Yes, and if we broadcast it to the public, everyone will know the truth." Xira's glowing patterns brightened with urgency. "Where is this archive?" Darvik hesitated. "Deep beneath the Hall of Elders, under the Capitol." Daniel frowned. "Let me guess, it's heavily guarded." Darvik smirked. "Beyond anything you've seen. But I know a way in." Daniel exhaled. "Of course you do." Xira turned to Daniel. "If we do this, there's no going back. The keepers will hunt us forever." Daniel met her gaze. "They're already hunting us." Xira nodded, her expression firm. "Then let's finish this." Darvik placed the device in Daniel's hand. "This will extract the archive's data. Once we have it, we upload it to the planetary network. Every screen, every device. The truth will be unstoppable." Daniel tightened his grip on the device. This was it. If they succeeded, they would change history. If they failed, they would die. Darvik grabbed a weapon from the table and checked its charge. "We leave now. The longer we wait, the more time the keepers have to find us." Xira took a deep breath. "Then let's make history." The three of them stepped toward the door. Outside, the city buzzed with life, unaware that tonight everything would change. The night was alive with neon lights and humming transport pods as Daniel, Xira, and Darvik moved swiftly through the city. Their destination, the Hall of Elders, the heart of the Xilari government, the place where the stolen memories of humanity were buried. Darvik led them through an underground tunnel, his weapon ready. "This passage takes us directly beneath the hall. Once inside, we'll have only minutes before the keepers detect us." Daniel gripped the data extraction device tightly. "Then we make those minutes count." As they reached a massive steel door, Darvik placed his hand on a scanner. The system hesitated, then flashed green. "We're in," he whispered. The door slid open, revealing a massive chamber filled with glowing data cores. Each core contained memories, history, the truth that had been stolen from humanity. Sira moved quickly, guiding Daniel to the central console. "Plug it in." Daniel inserted the device into the terminal. The screen flickered, symbols racing across it as the data began transferring. 40% complete. Footsteps echoed in the distance. The keepers had arrived. Darvik raised his weapon. "Hold them off while it finishes." Zyra stood beside him, her glowing hands crackling with energy. "They will not stop us." The first wave of keepers stormed into the chamber, their weapons blazing. Darvik fired first, taking down 2 instantly. Zyra unleashed a shockwave, sending others crashing into the walls. 60% complete. Daniel ducked as an energy blast barely missed him. The air sizzled with heat. He could hear the keepers shouting in their alien tongue, demanding that they surrender. Not happening. Darvik fought like a warrior, his movements swift and deadly. But more keepers poured in. Too many. Zyra gasped as a blast struck her shoulder. She staggered but didn't fall. Daniel's heart pounded. "Come on, hurry." 80% complete. A deep voice boomed across the chamber. "Stop them." An elder keeper stepped forward, taller, stronger, deadlier. His armor pulsed with dark energy. With a flick of his hand, Darvik was slammed against a wall, pinned by an invisible force. Zyra screamed in defiance, launching another shockwave, but the elder deflected it effortlessly. 98% complete. The elder marched toward Daniel. "You do not understand what you are about to unleash." Daniel's fingers hovered over the final command. "I think I do." The elder raised his hand to strike. 100%. Daniel slammed the button. The chamber lights flickered. The data transmitted. Across the planet, screens flashed. Every device, every monitor, every holopad, they all displayed the stolen history of humanity. The battles, the betrayals, the erased victories. The truth was free. The elder staggered. The keepers hesitated. The city itself froze in shock. Darvik grinned. "It's over." Daniel exhaled. "No, it's just beginning." Because now, the whole galaxy knew.